So I'm hoping everybody's in the right spot. That's why I put this up so you can see it and you walk in and go, oh, I was here to buy a car, but maybe I'll sit down anyways. Okay, so just as a brief introduction, we are First Citizens on Patrol, and ACOPA has hired me to provide this training. What happened was I retired from the RCMP March of last year, and I will talk a little bit about my experiences, but my last job I was in charge of community policing for the province of Alberta for the RCMP, and I worked with ACOPA very closely. So when I retired, they approached me to see if I would do a Train the Trainer program for High River for the AGM September of last year. So I put it all together, presented it to 67 trainers to go out and do the province, provide this program. And then about 2 weeks later, Bev phoned up and she said, "You're such an entertaining speaker," which means that I trip over my tongue lots, and so you could get to laugh at me, and that we would like you to go around to the province and do it. And so far I've done Fort Saskatchewan, Linden, Whitecourt, and then now you guys, and then there's a few others that they're lining up. And so the ACOPA is paying for the training. Your local group generally gets donations to pay for the venue, the meal, and local things, but ACOPA is covering my costs to come and provide this training. And so just to give a brief introduction, I'd like to everybody to introduce themselves, and I'll start. My name is sort of curling up saying Bob. So it seems like every time I look down it's curled over and all you see is OB. But I was a member of the RCMP for 35 years. I joined in 1982, and I was posted in Stony Plain, Alberta, Two Hills, Alberta, Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, Lutzow, Northwest Territories, Gleason, Alberta, Turner Valley, Alberta, Sutina, Alberta, Shelbrook, Saskatchewan, Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, Spiritwood, Saskatchewan, back to Gleason, Alberta. Then I went to Europe for a year. Then I came back, went to Gleason, Alberta. Then I went to Creston, BC. And then I finished up in Edmonton as the acting officer in charge of community policing. And I had an incredible career. And the hardest thing I ever did was to retire, and because I got to work with community groups like this. And I made a mission in my whole career was to continue to work with community groups. And I was very fortunate. And then when Bev came and asked me to do this, it was like, oh, fantastic, I love this. All right, I want to thank you for coming tonight. Citizens on Patrol is the fastest growing community group in the province of Alberta right now. And a lot of it is because of ACOPA, that they're really pushing the program, they're getting their message out there. The second part why it's growing so fast is crime is growing. A lot of property crime. It's probably the fastest growing thing in the province of Alberta, actually right across Canada with property crime. And what's happening, our police services have to refocus what they do. When I joined in 1982, if a community group like this came forward and said, hey, we want to help you, the RCMP would have said, whoa, hold on, crime belongs to us. That's what we do. And if crime increases, then we're going to go to the province and the federal government. We're going to ask for more money, for more resources, and more people. And we can take care of it. And for probably the first 15 to 20 years of my career, there was a real push to just increase the size of the organization. From 1979 to 1986, the RCMP almost doubled in size because crime was going up, so we'd go to the province and we'd ask for more money. I could tell you that this year, when the CO sat down with the province, it wasn't to say how much more money we need, it's how much are you cutting? And so what's happening is crime is going up, resourcing for policing is dropping, and more people are starting to say, like, something has to happen. And we have to stop with this idea that police own crime. If something's happening in your community, and I'm curling again, happens in your community, it belongs to the community. And the police are only one part of the solution. And so the police services right now in Canada are really encouraging community groups to step forwards and help. But having said that, it has to be done in the right way. It has to be done so that you're safe and that you're not building or making the problem worse. And the worst thing we want is vigilantes. We don't want to go out there and catch crimes. The goal and motto of Citizens on Patrol is that you're the eyes and the ears of the community. And so we need to make sure that everybody is doing the patrolling in a safe way that will help reduce crime, will get higher visibility out there, and will work in partnerships with our service groups or with the police, with other service agencies out there. So that's what the training is. It follows the ACOPA training manual, and we're going to talk about a few things, but we'll get started here now. So the mission statement of ACOPA is to build partnerships, general liability. That's the nice thing about ACOPA is once you are a member and you've got all of your society, registered with the society, ACOPA has insurance that covers everybody. Training programs, me. Development and of sustainability of CLP groups, supply the identification cards, and ensure resources are available province-wide. I do want to talk about the identification cards. It is important that you have them, but I talked to Bev yesterday, and they just got a brand new machine to make these cards, and it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to every card to get made. So they're really far behind. So I can't sit here and say you can't go out on a patrol if you don't have identification, but you do have to be certified and registered with your local CLP group, but you don't have to have your identification card. They are in the process of getting them up and running and getting them sent out to everybody as they're being sent in. But when I talked to her last night, she'd been approached by 4 brand new groups this week about getting CLP up and running. When I did the AGM training in September, I believe at that time there was 72 groups in the province. They're up to 78 now. So it is a program that's really growing in the province of Alberta, and it's a big group of people. And so we have to make sure the training's consistent, but they are trying to deal with this huge volume of people that are coming in right now. They weren't prepared because most of the ACOPA board members, all of the ACOPA board members, are volunteers. And so it's not like that they have full-time jobs doing ACOPA. So the lady who does do the identification cards has a full-time position, and she just got a brand new machine that she's going to be doing them. So she will get the training or the cards, identification cards out. What ACOPA is they're your provincial group. They're made up of people who were in CLP groups in the past, and they felt that they needed a provincial group to get together so that they could lobby to the government. And I can tell you in my last position, I worked with the Department of Justice an awful lot. They weren't interested in talking to individual groups around the province. They loved the fact that ACOPA had a provincial group that could come and speak in one body. And it really helps when they approach the province and the Department of Justice in regards to getting help from the province and even getting a little bit of financial support. It's certainly the province isn't in the same boat it was a few years ago where they had several $1 million to hand out. This year they only hand out small amounts to each group. But ACOPA, because they're a provincial group, was able to apply. They provide general liability and optional accidental death and disbursement. I think that's dismemberment. They get really good rates. And why they get really good rates is because they went to the insurance provider and they said, before any of our volunteers go out on the road, they have to be trained, and here's our training manual. And they actually had to submit it to the insurance company. And the insurance company went through that training manual and said, okay, as long as your members are following the rules and regulations that are identified in here, we will give you this rate. So you have to make sure that you know that manual, that you should have it. You should refresh yourself every once in a while. Your groups, when you meet, could take a portion out of that manual and maybe do a bit of a training process. So you're constantly refreshing yourself. ACOPA does meet on a regular basis to talk about any changes that either the insurance company has or the RCMP has or any of the other groups have brought it forwards. And will be updating their training manual. It is available online. So if you don't have a copy, I believe you could go on there and look at it. Okay. Bylaws. Each group has to have their own bylaws under Service Alberta, and that's under the Societies Act. You also need policies and procedures, and they have to be unique to your group. But having said that, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you go on ACOPA's website, you will see that they have links to other groups in the province that have actually published their policies and procedures. And in your policies and procedures, it should record how you're going to run your group. For the Societies Act, it says you have to have meetings, you have to have voting and stuff like this, but your policies and procedures should be talking about how you're going to conduct your patrols. Are you going to be paying for mileage? Some groups do, some groups don't. How you're going to work with your local RCMP detachment, your communication strategies, because what that does is it gives you longevity of your program. Because I can tell you right now, working in so many different communities, if you have a strong, committed group to get a program up and running, and it runs really good, and then one or two people move away or get tired of volunteering all the time and step away, groups die. If you have policies and procedures, everybody's following those same rules, and you can come back to them. You don't get as much infighting. So you do desperately and really need to sit down with your local police service and figure out how you're going to run your program. Because plain and simple, if you're not working with that local police service, what are you doing? Because that's why you're out there. You're the eyes and ears of the community, but if you have nobody to report to, you're wasting your time. So you have to have that good relationship and start working with them. Goals of your groups, okay? Observation, documentation, and reporting. Education to volunteers. Increased awareness of suspicious and dangerous things, okay? And to ensure that your groups are all fully trained. And that means you don't just take this training. That means when you're having your general meetings, that you should have a training component at every one of those meetings. The PowerPoint that I did up has ones dealing with note-taking, has ones on how to attend court and give evidence. So these are all things that you can do internally with your groups when you have your own meetings, and you don't need a specialized presenter, or you could approach the local detachment police service that you work with and ask one of them to do this training with you, because it basically follows their policies and procedures. Should never put yourself at risk. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to an accident scene or I've gone to a critical incident where people who want to help put themselves at risk and became secondary victims. And what does a secondary victim do to that first victim? You can share. I like it when we communicate. Okay? Takes resources away from that first victim. So plain and simple, you always have to take caution. You do not put yourself at risk. You're the eyes and ears. So with policies and procedures in your manual, it talks about, do you get out of your vehicle? I see a lot of shaking heads. You could talk back. Do you get out of your vehicle when you're on patrol? No. Well, of course you do. You go to the bathroom, you go to Tim Hortons. Okay? But when you're working and you're out on patrol, you're the eyes and ears. If you come across an incident, what you're supposed to do is back up, get on whatever communication strategy you have, if it's your cell phone or if it's a two-way radio or whatever, to call for help. If you see an incident, you report it on your incident reports. If you use iPatrol or ACOPA Patrol, there's other ways, but you document it down. But you don't get out of your vehicle. But I'm going to put a caveat on that. If you see someone in medical distress and you're trained in first aid, yes, you can get out of your vehicle. But what's the very first rule of anyone who's trained in first aid? Say it loud. Safety first. Safety first. And what do you do before you help? Call for help. I'm trained in first aid. Shane. Call for help. Get help. Then you engage. So you have to do that. But you always have to be cognizant of what's happening around you. Like if it's a car accident and there's someone injured, but there's still vehicles sliding through, you can't get out there because you're going to become a secondary victim. So you always got to take a look at the big picture, what's happening around you, make the determination that it is safe to get out of your vehicle, contact somebody. This is what I'm doing. I'm getting out to provide first aid, and you have to know that someone's en route. All right? 5 basic rules. Never go on patrol alone, always in pairs. Who can be in the vehicle with you? Has to be another trained person. So if Robin, who's my cousin, shows up and I'm scheduled for a patrol that night, and I do have a secondary partner, can Robin jump in the back seat and come with us? No. Unless Robin is certified under the with ACOPA and is a member of another COP someplace within the province of Alberta. And why we say the province of Alberta is because with our insurance providers, everybody has to have that same level of training. So even if she's COP in BC or COP in Halifax, no. If she's trained here in Alberta, she could be in the vehicle with us. Is your dog counting as the second person?
They're not trained.
They're not trained. Well, hopefully they're trained, but not this type of training. Yeah. Okay. So a minimum of always 2. As a police officers, we would have loved to be able to always partner up. Unfortunately, most of my career, that didn't happen. When I was in Europe, stationed in Europe, it was funny because in Kosovo, one of the communities I worked with was Oblique, and they had 29 police officers and 4 vehicles. So when they went on patrols, it was 5 police officers in one of those tiny little 4-cylinder vehicles. And if they ever arrested somebody, they had to call somebody and hope that the other vehicles were actually running. So, but you guys can only be minimum of 2. You can be more, but minimum of 2 when you're doing your patrols. Do not get out of your vehicle. Stay alert to your surroundings. And what does that mean? Be aware of what's going on. So it doesn't mean that you're driving, okay, I'm downtown now I'm going to start paying attention to what's happening. No. The person, because you see my hands, that's supposed to pretend I'm at a steering wheel. The driver pays attention to driving because you don't want to be a danger out there. So whoever's driving the vehicle is concentrating on driving. The passenger is the observer. How many people are trained observers in this room? Okay? We're trained to pay attention to things that are happening around us. Has anyone heard of spidey senses? Do they exist? You ever get that feeling like sort of crawling up the back of your neck, or you drive through an area and something just doesn't feel right? You all have them, but you've never been tasked with actually knowing that they're there and to act on them. It happens to all of us. I can guarantee that every single person in this room at one time was driving through or walking through an area and they're going, something's not right. You have to train yourself to pay attention, to start looking at things that just don't make sense. So if you're driving downtown right now in Olds, Alberta, and you see someone driving a garden tractor, would that be out of place?
Yeah. If it doesn't have a snowblower on it.
Okay, if it doesn't have a blade on the front, yeah, or a snowblower on the front, it would be a little bit out of place. A snowmobile? No, it wouldn't be out of place. Okay, so you pay attention. You keep your eyes open and you're looking for things. Trust your instincts. We all have them. We are all raised, okay, to take care of ourselves, to be safe. Our parents all told us, be aware of strangers. Okay? We all watch TV and we watch the police officers solve crimes in 15 to 20 minutes. But we know that doesn't happen. We do know that if we pay attention, we keep our eyes open, and we let people in our community know that we're taking responsibility for our community, that things will change. But again, if you see something, you have to have a communication strategy with the police service on how you're going to get that information to them. There's 3 partners in this group. You have ACOPA, which is your provincial group. You have you, who are the local COP groups. And then you have your police service. In the province of Alberta, all of them right now are associated to the RCMP. The RCMP takes this responsibility and this partnership very seriously. Our previous commanding officer, Marianne Ryan, signed an MOU in 2017 before she retired. And in that MOU, it says the RCMP will work with COP, with ACOPA. They will have a liaison officer at the provincial level to work with ACOPA. And that they will work with their detachment commanders to try and have local liaison officers. The CO cannot come out and demand to every detachment commander that you will have it, but she recommends it in this MOU. Okay? And the RCMP do have a responsibility to work with you. But every detachment's going to be a little different. Some of the places I've gone to, they said we have a fantastic relationship. We get more than just our liaison officer coming to our meetings. We get multiple of officers. Others, unfortunately, we get nothing. We have a liaison officer and he or she is really good, but they only come when they're on shift. And halfway through half of our meetings, they always get called out because most of the detachments maybe only have 1 or 2 members working. So if a call comes in, they have to respond. So there are strategies on how to develop a better relationship. I've been in 14 different communities. I'm going to take this off because otherwise it's like this. When I joined when I was 21 years old, I didn't shave. I never had whiskers on my face. And throughout my career, I'd go on holidays for 2 weeks and I'd try to grow a little bit of a fuzz. This is the first time I've had hair on my face and I keep touching it. The bad thing is, it's coming out gray. The first time I get to grow facial hair and it's frickin' gray. Okay? But relationships with your local police service. If you're president of your association, I'm going to have a better relationship with my RCMP members. Walks into that detachment, sits down at the office with the commanding officer and says, I have a group of 20 people, a group of 30 people. We're wanting to help you knock down crime in our community, but we want you to send an officer to all our meetings. And that detachment commander is going to say there, I'm going to do the best I can, but I can't guarantee I can do that. And I can tell you right now, because I've been in that chair on the other side of that desk having that conversation, I'm going to be sitting there going, I have 101 other priorities. I'm dealing with HR. I'm dealing with the town. I'm dealing with the First Nations communities. I'm dealing with serious crime. And all this group is going to do is increase my workload. And so I'm not so inclined to help you. My boss, the commanding officer in Alberta, says I have to. So I'm going to say, yes, I'm going to have a liaison officer for you. And I'm going to walk out into my bullpen and I'm going to say, who wants to be the COP liaison? And you're going to hear crickets. Cricket, cricket, cricket. Okay? And then finally I'm going to go to a constable and I say, you're the junior constable, or you just got to this detachment, so you're going to be the liaison officer. And most times they're fantastic liaison officers. But some of them aren't interested in that. And so what I'm suggesting is that you change your approach on how you go to the RCMP. Instead of going in saying we have a meeting once a month or once every 3 months and we want a liaison officer, I could tell you that the RCMP have to answer to headquarters. And what they do is they do an annual performance plan, or APP is the acronym. And every year in this APP, they have to do a crime reduction strategy, crime prevention strategy. And in my previous job, I went out and I met with all 112 detachment commanders in this province, teaching them about the Habitual Offender Management Program, or Priority Offender Program. And it's dealing with crime reduction. It's dealing with the small 10% of the population who commits 80% of the crime. And one of the first things that I ever did was I would talk to those detachment commanders and I'd say, have you made partnerships within your community with your COP and your Rural Crime Watch and let them know what this program's all about? And I got to tell you, most of them said no. So what I'm suggesting is now your president walks into that detachment commander's office, sits down at the desk or sits down in the coffee. Hopefully he or she will serve you a coffee. Okay? You sit down and be informed. Walk in and say, you know what? I know one of your priorities are crime reduction or crime prevention. I have 26 people in my group. I have 30 people in my group, or I have 56. How many people are in Olds right now?
54.
54. 54 people who want to help on your crime reduction program. Let us know what you need us to do. Because we're here to help. We don't want to create more work for you. What we want to do is reduce the amounts of crime and complaints in this community. So what can we do to help you in this program? Volunteer to help. Be informed. I can tell you right now, if you just read your newspaper, does any of your local community newspapers put out like a police report? Do they talk about what are the priority issues? Okay, in your community? Start focusing on those. Don't just say we're going to go out and make patrols for whatever. Okay? If the issue in your community happens to be property crime, target your patrols to look for property crime. When I was in Creston, BC, one of the issues that we had was youth being intoxicated. We had gone to the liquor stores and said, hey, you can't sell to youth, and they were all really good. In a small community of less than 5,000 people, we had 3 liquor stores. We went to all 3 liquor stores saying you cannot sell to youth, and they were really good. So then what our issue was is all these youth would hang out front of the liquor stores and wait for one of their cousins or their friends or some adult and ask them to buy booze. And the liquor store owner saying, we can't patrol outside our stores. So I went to our COP group and I said, you can't interject, you can't get out of your vehicle, but be a high visibility deterrent when you're making your patrols. Go past all the liquor stores. Let them know that you're watching. Start documenting what you see. And if you see kids trying to hassle other people to buy alcohol, call us, because that's one of our priorities, and we're going to respond. So be informed what the issues are. You should have a relationship with your local detachment so that you know, is it property crime? Is it theft from vehicles? Is it an industrial site? Like here, this place has been hit how many times? Too many. This should be included in your patrols. Have dedicated patrols for what the issues are. You don't get to just jump in your car and drive around. Where are you going? Document what you're doing, but be focused, because that way when you then sit down with that detachment commander and you're submitting your reports, he has to sign or develop a report quarterly to district. What did we do in crime reduction? And wouldn't it be wonderful if you as a group came in and said, this is how many patrols we did, high visibility patrols, trying to reduce crime in this area, and it goes in his report. What's he look like to his district officer? A shining star. He looks really good. So if you make me look really good, am I more inclined to help you? If you're actually cutting down on my workload, am I more inclined to help you? Because I'll tell you what, all of these detachment commanders are committed, hardworking, want to do the best job that they possibly can, but they're so frickin' stressed right now that they're having a hard time getting everything done. And they're dealing with lack of resources, lack of funding, simple things like the RCMP, when we have someone transferred, they might not get that position filled for over a year. So I can tell you in some of the detachments, they're running 25 to 30% short. What's Olds like right now? About 20% short. Okay. And so they're trying to just fill shifts sometimes. And so working and dealing with partnerships. So that's the academic or the enforcement part of it. What do you guys do to build a relationship with the local detachment members? Not just the detachment commander, but the local detachment members. Local barbecues?
We invite them to all our social functions we have.
Yeah, do they come?
You betcha.
Okay.
And their spouses.
Okay, because that's what I was going to bring up. Remember, most police officers have a significant other. And I can tell you, every community I went to, I got invited to everything. And I would go. And I would show up and I would try to do a really good job and develop those relationships. And then I'd go home and my wife would be saying, well, where were you and what did you do? I can tell you right now, the communities, Two Hills, Alberta. We moved in there, young couple. We had one young child. We go in, the community immediately invited us to a community function, me and my wife. And my wife made all the friends within the community. And so anytime that they needed something, they knew if they wanted Bob to respond, go to the wife. Okay? And she became a member of a lot of those community groups. And she dragged me along. Okay? So remember, most police officers now are more than just that uniform. They're an individual who wants to do a fantastic job and is really committed, but sometimes really is worried about making those friends. Or they get isolated because they're the police in the community. And I was fortunate because I came from a small community. So when I went to my first posting, Stony Plain, Alberta, I started playing volleyball. I volunteered at the high school. I got involved in the community. So did my wife. And I carried that throughout my career. A lot of the police officers recruiting right now are coming from big cities. They are a little terrified about these small communities where everybody knows everybody. So you need to invite them into your community. You need to know and let them know that they're welcome. And recognize that they're individuals too, and that they have a family. And they're going to sit there and say, you know, I work, and then I'm going to commit time to my family. But if somehow you convince their significant other to participate in your group, they're going to drag that police officer along with them. So I would suggest you start taking a look. As the police officers come into your community, what are you doing to welcome them? As a detachment commander, every new member in my detachment, whether he was a cadet or a seasoned trained member who was just transferring in, I always had a checkoff sheet that they had to ride or meet with the COP. They had to meet with all the different community groups and to develop that relationship. A lot of detachments don't have that. So I would suggest that you take a look. What can we do to welcome new members coming into our detachment? And then remember that they generally come more than one. There's someone that's with them. And those are the people that will be your friends, your police officer for the rest of their careers.
Sorry. So if a RCMP that have this training still come to so they're under this.
The police officers have their own insurance. They don't have to be worried about COP insurance, as well as their training is quite a bit more than the 3 hours that I'm going to give you. They have at least 3 hours and 45 minutes. Yes, they can ride. Police officers can ride. And I would ask them to do that. In the communities that had COP with me, I said, take your uniform off and go for a ride. Get to know who you're working with. Okay, develop those relationships. And simple things like going to a coffee shop. Like I'd have a lot of COP members say, you know what, we'd go to the coffee shop the same time police officers are there, and we feel a little bit like we're intruding on them if we sit down for coffee. Well, the goal is to build that relationship up before you ever show up at the coffee shop. So actually, you're phoning each other and saying, hey, we're going to go for coffee. Are you interested in joining us? Get those relationships going. Because everything that you're going to do right now is going to hinge on your relationship with the police service that you're working with. And it's tough, because I'll tell you what, they're being tasked with way too much. It's a physical impossibility to do their job right now. So they're prioritizing what they can do and what they can't do. And that's what that APP, Annual Performance Plan, does. It identifies specifically what they're going to work on. So go and ask your detachment commander, what is the APP? Ask your liaison officer, what's in your APP? What initiatives are you working on that we can help you with? And start being focused on what you're doing. Because it's not good enough to just jump in a car and make patrols. Why are we out there? Eyes and ears of the community, but we're working on specific things. Conduct. So you do get your card. Okay, it's got your picture on it. It says you're a member of the COP for OLS or the ACOPA program. Does that give you any special privileges? So you go in the local coffee shop, and the local coffee shop knows that you're ACOPA and that you're making patrols, and he feels, thank you. I want to thank you for all the kind effort that you're doing. And he offers to buy you coffee. What do? I'm sorry? Thanks, but no thanks. Okay? You do not patrol the coffee shop just because he gives you free coffee. And that's the impression that might come out. Tim Hortons used to have a policy. Any uniformed police officer that came into Tim Hortons got their coffee for free. And it was to the point, first time I ever worked in a community that had a Tim Hortons was Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. I walked into the Tim Hortons, and I didn't actually like Tim Hortons coffee, but that's where everybody went. And I was the boss, so I went. And I walked up, and I had my money in my hand, and she goes, no, for you it's free. I go, no, it's not. I pay for my coffee. We have a standing, I can't take your money. And I put my money on the table, and I said, then take it as a tip, but I have to pay for my coffee. I cannot accept anything different than the community does just because I wear this uniform. And then I look at the 5 constables who are following me and the corporal, and none of them have money. So I said, oh, by the way, I'm covering their coffee. Here it is. And from this moment on, we'll all be paying for our coffee. Ethics and values. It cannot be seen by the general public that you're getting special treatment just because you belong to COP, or that you're making patrols to certain areas because this dealership gave you the opportunity to have this meeting.
So no free cars?
No free cars. Okay? Yeah. You make a patrol through this business because there's been so many thefts here. This is one that you're going to check out. Okay? You're going to check with them. Do they normally leave their lights on?
Well, just because we do have free coffee here.
For the general public, not for COP members though, right? Because we have had complaints. ACOPA, Bev has told me that they had a complaint of a COP member who walked into a bank, walked past everybody in the line, presented their COP identification and said, I'm in a rush, I'm a COP volunteer, and I'd like to be seen right now.
Sorry.
Okay? What did that do to that COP program in that community? It hurt them, because all those people in the line going, like, what's going on? Okay? So do not take special privileges. If it's as a group, okay? Because you do need equipment. So as a group, a COP group, you approach a local business to say, we would like you to sponsor us for flashlights for our crew. That's perfectly okay. That's fundraising for a group. But do not take anything individually, because it just hurts your program. People start to say you're only volunteering for what you get out of it. You're getting out of it because you're taking responsibility, ownership of your community. That's why you're doing this. You're not doing it to get COP jackets or COP paraphernalia. You're not doing it because you get free coffees. You need to hold yourself to a standard so that when people say about COP members, that's who I want to be, because they're doing it for the right reasons. Members, that'll be a copy of what you get. I think they're coming out with the photos on them now. Oh, sorry. Okay. Equipment to take on a patrol. How does Olds doing it right now? Do each of you have individual bags, or is there bags that you guys could sign out? Sign out bags? Okay. Because each groups could do it a little bit different. This is something that will go into your policies and procedures. Some groups will have 4 or 5 bags that you could sign out. The only thing is then you have to make sure that everything is put back in that bag at the end of the shift. Everything is checked off, that there's extra batteries and stuff like that, and that the bag is ready to go for the next shift. So that when the next shift walks in, grabs the bag, it's ready. So other groups will have their own bags. People who have volunteered for several years will develop and build up their own equipment. But certain things that you should have in your bag. What time do most of your shifts occur? At nighttime. So what's one piece of equipment you should have? Flashlight. How about night vision goggles? Does anyone have those?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, some groups do. Okay, you could buy those small monocle ones for a couple of $100 now. And that's where some groups have approached like agencies like Canadian Tire or other groups out there to help them with these, okay, so that you do have them. You need to have flashlights, you need to have night vision goggles, or if you do have them. You also should have a reflective vest. And it's nice if it does say COP on it. Because when do you get out of your car? There's one caveat. Go pee, yeah. In the bush, wear the vest. If you're walking in the coffee shop, you don't have to wear the vest. If you're going out to give medical aid to somebody, put the vest on. And we are going to talk about flagging as well. If you're a certified flagger under the Department of Transportation, you can do flagging as well. But that's when you'll put the reflective vest on. That's when you have to make sure that people know who you are, the organization you're working for, and it should be a high visibility vest. Should have all the paperwork in there that you need. Are anyone doing iPatrol? Using iPatrol, the iPads, telephones? You guys are? Okay. It's a program that ACOPA, actually Henry, Bev's husband, developed it, and it's an app that you could download on iPhones, and now you can also do it on other Android phones. And you could do your entire patrol on it. It's got a GPS tracker on it, so it follows you everywhere you go. You could actually take snapshots with it and upload it into that program, and then you could download it all onto a stick at the end of the night. Or you can actually send it electronically. And it's a great program. I know that Bev and Henry showed it to our new CO, and he's sitting there going, this is better than anything that we have. Because it's right on our phones. So it's a program that really works, but this is something else. A lot of programs or groups are having iPads with this iPatrol on it. And so that they're opening those up. You start the beginning of your shift, and you put all your information in there, who's in the vehicle, what type of vehicle, the start mileage, and it tracks you everywhere you go. And if you see something suspicious, you bring it up and go click, there's a picture. So if you don't have this, another tool that you're going to carry with you is your cell phone. Does everybody have a cell phone? Yeah, today's society, everybody has cell phones. At least one of the two. What's the best thing on that cell phone now? Camera. Okay? There's also a program or an app that you can download called Zello, Z-E-L-L-O. And what it does, if you open this up and you partner up with somebody, it makes your cell phone into a two-way radio. And it uses cell phone lines. So I could click this right now, and Bev has it on her phone at Sherwood Park. If I put her on there, clicked it on, all I'd have to do is touch a button and I could talk to her. I don't have to dial, I don't have to do anything. So if you have multiple cars out there, more than one vehicle doing patrols, or maybe your local RCMP member, and he has that on his phone, touch, I'm talking to him. Okay? This is what's happening right now. We're going through the high school and we just noticed that the windows are all broken on the main door. Take your thumb off, done. He or she touches, talks right back to you. So it's Z-E-L-L-O and it's free. And it'll go anywhere your cell phone goes. You can also do your iPatrol on here as well. Okay? So this is a necessity. Because what does a picture do for you? 1,000 words. So if you take a picture of an item, is that my phone ringing right now? I get it. Sorry. But yeah, that was Bev, yeah, on Zello. You need to have some sort of communication strategy. And I want to talk about the beginning of your shift. How do you guys register you're going to start your shift? Who do you notify?
We actually go right to the cop shop.
You go right to the cop shop? And how do you do that? Like you knock at the door and hopefully someone's there?
Well, they're not there 24 hours. The cop
That's
shop,
right.
But their office is only till 4 or 5 o'clock, right? So we then call them. So
Yeah.
they actually let us in. We actually log in.
Okay.
We actually do.
That is by far the best way. Because they're your helpline now, your emergency line. It is letting people know that you're starting your shift. At the end of your shift, how do you notify them that you're done?
We stop in and decide
Okay, so best possible way. Because you have to have that helpline. Plain and simple, somebody needs to know when you're starting your shift and when you're finishing your shift. Because if you're supposed to be done at 2 o'clock in the morning and your helpline isn't being notified at 2:15, they're going 911. Because you are putting yourself at harm's way by going out there and making patrols. And there has been times where things happen. If the vehicle breaks down, if you get into an accident, or the worst case scenario is if you came across something and they've harmed you. They have to know what time you start and what time you finish. As police officers, we would notify OCC what time we start our shift, and we have to let them know when we're off our shift. Because and we don't answer every 90 minutes, they're calling out the forces. But you guys can't use OCC. We actually, as a province or as a group, we approached them to say, could we use you to have COP to log in? And they again said, we're just so overtaxed, we can't do that. So you have to look at your particular area. Sit down with your liaison officer and figure out a communication strategy. In some places, the detachments are so small that they don't even have someone working every single night. They might have someone on call. And so that way you have to have an internal process. How do we make sure that people are monitoring where we are? So I've had it where they'll have one person. I think Linden, they had one person who will cover that night. They have the patrollers going out. The patrollers contact that one person, say, okay, we're leaving on our patrol. We're going to patrol from this time to this time, and we will call you when we get back. And they notify when their patrol's over. And it's so vitally important. You have to do this. Because plain and simple, you don't want to get hurt, and you need help coming if something does happen. So make sure that you have that system in place. This should also be going into your policies and procedures. So you start your patrol. In your forms or on the iPatrol, there's spaces on the actual forms saying, here's the driver, here's the passenger, we might switch up. Are you driving a vehicle in good shape? Yeah, the answer is no. That's a pretty easy question. Yes, yes. Okay. Should both headlights be working?
Yes.
Yes. Should both taillights be working?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you have to make sure that your vehicle is good and ready for your patrol. Full of gas, everything works, winter tires on at this time of the year. Okay. Be safe. Have a safety kit with you. Also in your duty bag, you should have a first aid kit. So you're prepared for whatever happens. You identify your partner. You make sure you have all the forms that you need. What kind of forms would you be carrying? What's that?
Incident report.
Incident reports?
Patrol reports,
Patrol reports?
maps.
Maps, yeah, or if you have a GPS or a GPS on or the maps feature on your phone. You should also have a book, a journal. This is your personal journal. And this is what you're going to put your individual notes on. Because I could tell you the longest I ever had from the time an incident happened to when I had to go to court was 9 years. I have a pretty good memory, but I didn't remember everything 9 years later. And I had a notebook. I carried a notebook with me all the time. When I was junior in the service, I had the little notebook I would carry in my pocket, but I found that as I got older, I couldn't see that small writing anymore, so my books got bigger. I would have a personal journal all the time. Not quite this big, yeah. This, by the way, is a page out of my journal. You should have a personal journal, and it should be a book that you cannot rip the pages out. Don't have one with the ring binders. Solid edge binder, numbered pages, and this is your personal journal. These are your notes so that in the event you ever do have to go to court, you've got this material in there. And there is on this PowerPoint one of your meetings on how to take notes. Okay? It should date, time, what the weather's like, who I'm in the vehicle with, and anytime something happens, just a brief notes, point form, bang, 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 this is what happened. Because if it is, say, a break and enter or a serious accident, the police officers might come and get a written statement from you, and you would have that available for you when you go to court, 90% of the time. But you should also always have your notes. And something that you're prepared to, they'll take your book, they'll photocopy them, and then the police officers will have those notes as well. But what the easiest way to do, something happens, you've called for help, pull out your journal, start documenting. This is what happened. Okay? So that you have these notes. And you always cover the 4 W's, 5 W's, who, what, where, when, why. So this is something else you're going to carry with you. You check in with your local police agency with whatever protocols you have in place. Check in with your helpline. Make sure that someone knows you're out on patrol. Are you guys, I noticed on an email yesterday that Olds is actually assigning shifts now?
We have an online scheduler where people can sign up for shifts.
Yeah, see, that's a great idea. Because then at least then you know what time the shifts are starting, what time they're finishing, who's in the vehicle, and anyone can go online and check. But you should still make sure someone is notified we're starting on this time and we're finishing on this time. That helpline. During your patrol, how many people have wrote a patrol sheet of started my shift on this date, time, here was my partner, here's my vehicle, my plate number, my mileage, and then finished it at the end, nothing happened? Okay? Waste of frickin' time. Absolute waste. The best thing that you can put on there, okay? Started my shift, all the tombstone information on the top. At 7:15, made a patrol of Mountain View, Dodge. Notice that all the doors and windows were in place. Nothing suspicious. The next morning, comes to work, and he notices that those 2 panes of glass have been knocked out. What can the police officer can use your notebooks or your incident, your patrol sheet. What does that tell them?
It was after 7:15.
It was after 7:15. Okay, gives us times and place. So you should be docking in that sheet where you are. Everything was good. You could also document in that sheet. Drove through the local high school. There was a Dodge truck, plate number such and such. And Dodge trucks always seem to have those things hanging off of the hitches. I don't know. You said they come standard or what? The bull balls? Okay? You're describing the truck, you're putting a plate number. It's not a 911 call, it's not urgent, but it's just something, the spidey senses are going off that something not right. Document that. Okay? It goes into your report. So the very next morning, the teachers show up at school at 7:30 and notice that someone's gone into the computer lab and destroyed all the computers. What does your patrol sheet give them? At least somebody to talk to. Okay? Why was your truck there? So use that patrol sheet to document what you're doing. If all you're putting is tombstone information, started patrol, nothing happened, end of patrol, went for coffee at 11:15, you know what? Why are you even doing it? Nobody's got the time to look at it. Nobody's compiling it. The other thing is what are you doing with these patrol sheets? They go to the detachment? All of them, like you'll have 5 patrols in a week or 6 patrols, all 6 sheets go? Can I suggest that you look for someone in your group who's willing to compile them? Okay? Put any information in there into one report. Because if you go to your liaison officer with 5, 6, 7 sheets of paper and hand it to your liaison officer, remember, he's up here, he's always going priorities. What are my priorities? What are my priorities? They're going to sit on the edge of his desk, his or her desk, until they get that spare 10 minutes. And I got to tell you, in 35 years, very seldom did I have spare 10 minutes. So a lot of times, reports would sit there until something happened and go, wait a second, maybe I better go back to these reports and check. Have someone in your group compiling these reports into one document. So you do it once a week or once a month so that they're only having to, they hand it to them and you can almost stand there and watch them. Are you going to read it? You going to read it? Eh? You going to read it? Because you're right there, you're handing them one piece. They're going to look at it, they're going, hey, wait a second, you know what? We had a break and enter in this area and I see you guys went through it at 10 o'clock. That's going to help us, okay? So try and compile it into one report so it's easy for them to look at it. Remember, partnerships, we're trying to work together with them. We're not trying to increase their workload. We're trying to actually decrease it for them. Give them more options because this is a partnership. We're working together. If you observe a suspicious incident, now comes out the incident report. We're going to do a couple of scenarios where we go through the incident reports a little later. Okay, emergency versus non-emergency situations. 911 calls. Who's ever had to call 911? Get put on hold? Yeah, it happens. It happens. Okay, so have your information ready. I'm calling 911. There's a break and enter in progress. I just saw 2 guys smash a window at the local hardware store and one guy is crawling through. Okay? Point blank, this is why it's an emergency. First statement, because they're going to say, what's your name? This is what I just saw. I just saw a break and enter, 2 people are crawling through the window. So what they might say was, okay, hold on, I'm going to dispatch a car and then I'll get you the information. But have that opening statement. This is what it is. And they'll tell you, okay, well, hold on. We don't have to dispatch something right now, but we're going to get the information. Because they do. What's your name? What's your phone number? Where are you at? Are you at risk right now? They have a standard protocol that they have to follow. But let them know right off the bat, this is why I'm calling. I see a break and enter in progress. I see an assault taking place, a fight, an impaired driver, someone passed out on the street. If you work COP downtown Edmonton, the last one is not a 911 call. because you see an awful lot of those guys and girls. There is a 211 number that you could call where they have a street team that will come and check to make sure that they're okay. But the police will not respond to someone laying on the street. Downtown Olds, a little different. Downtown Rimbey, a little different. Okay? So yes, that will be a 911 call. If you're calling the police detachment, again, this is what protocol or process that you've put in place. Do they want you to just phone their 24-hour recording at the office? Or do you have an option to phone the actual police officer? Because I got to tell you, every single police officer out there right now has a cell phone. Their personal one. They're not issued police cell phones unless they're a unit commander or an operations NCO. Most detachments only give the phones, office phones, to supervisors. Most of the constables out there do have a cell phone. And it's entirely up to them whether or not they will share that cell phone number with you. But I've heard it where what they'll do is certain groups will actually have cell phones that they buy and give it to the detachment and say, this is a COP cell phone so that your members who are working can have contact with us. Or they have the Zello app put onto their phones, so then you don't even have to exchange phone numbers, you use Zello. But you need to have a communication strategy. If we're going to just phone our detachment, so graffiti in progress, bush party in progress with alcohol visible. Who's been to a bush party in this room? Not as a policeman. We live in rural Alberta. Bush parties happen. The police, it's nice to know where there's a bush party, but this is definitely not an emergency. This is just general conversation. When I worked small communities, I would find out where the bush parties were, and because I grew up in Shelbrook, Saskatchewan, and went to bush parties all the time, I would drive in, and you should have seen the shock on the face. My very first time, went to Stony Plain. I driving around, and I see all these vehicles, stopped a few of them, thought, well, there's a bush party over there. I drove in. Nobody told me as a policeman I'm not supposed to go to a bush party. I drove in, I said, hey, how are you guys doing? I'm a policeman here, brand new. Just want to let you know I'm out on the road, make sure you have a safe driver. And then once I get to know the kids in the community. When I got stationed at Two Hills, Alberta, my nephew and niece came to stay with me. Come from a big city. They went out on a bush party. My niece didn't show up on time. Broke curfew. I'm working. I drive into the bush party. Hi guys, how you doing? Where's my niece? Behind that bush. Because I had such a good relationship with the kids in town. They knew I wasn't going to bust their balls. Maybe we were videoing this. They knew. They knew. Could you edit that? They knew I wasn't there to hassle them. I was there to make sure that they were safe. Okay? So I had a really good relationship. But I didn't phone their parents saying, hey, Joey's at a bush party. I certainly took my niece home, but I had a good relationship. But I don't need to know. That's not a need to know where these bush parties are. In a big city, maybe, but not here. Broken window at a school, yes, this might mean there's a break and enter going on. Okay? So certainly you would notify the police. So there are certain things you would phone the members who are working. It's not an emergency call, it's an information call. Okay? How do you tell the difference between a stunting driver and an impaired driver?
Impaired drive slower.
Sometimes, yeah. 30. You can't. Okay? I've had years and years and years of training. I'm a trained observer. I can't tell the difference sometimes between a stunting driver and an impaired driver. I see a driving pattern. Certainly, if it's consistent all the time, I'm more inclined to think that their ability to drive is impaired by something. I've had, unfortunately, pulled people over and found out that they're impaired by age. Okay? Or impaired by youth. They just don't have enough driving experience. And so a vehicle that's driving in an erratic manner, in a manner that raises concern. You can't say it's an impaired driver unless you see the guy or the girl throwing the beer bottles in the ditch. Then you can jump to the conclusion it's impaired driving. But plain and simple, if you see a vehicle that's driving in a manner that is going to cause injury or death, you need to phone it in. That's a 911 call. If it's a vehicle who in downtown Main Street spins their tires and then goes straight and drives okay, it's not a 911 call. If it's one who's going side to side to side down the highway and is getting closer and closer to that ditch, 911 call. You have to use common sense. Plain and simple, if the driving pattern is such an extreme that someone's going to get hurt, call it in. If it's one where it's stunting, spinning the tires, and then they drive good, document it and it'll go into your report. This is what goes into your, no police attention, this goes into your weekly or monthly report. You drive by the school and someone's graffiti, or tagging they call it, okay? All over the side of the school or one of the businesses. Garbage is someone's dumped garbage out in the roads, okay? That would go in your report, and that would probably go to the town maybe, notify the town that there was garbage dumped on the roads. Open gate or open garage. Nice thing about small towns, you see an open garage, generally do you know who lives there? Even in Edmonton, I've left my garage door open and my neighbors, Bob, knock, 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 your garage door is open. It's okay to notify your neighbors if you drive by and you see their garage door open. This is one time it is safe to get out of the vehicle again because you know who the people are. Vehicles parked or unoccupied, okay, parked at school late at night. Those go into your general patrol reports. What is a suspicious vehicle?
Any vehicle where it shouldn't be.
A vehicle where it shouldn't be? Okay. What else could be suspicious?
Damage on it.
Certain types of damage. Okay.
Driving real slow.
Yeah. Are they driving, shining a flashlight in all the businesses? Because unless they got COP, why are they doing that? Okay? Unless it's an unmarked police car, why are they doing that? Is it parked in behind a business that normally is closed at 7 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock at night, yet there's a vehicle sitting there running because it's cold right now in behind a business? Suspicious vehicle. Use your spider senses. If it's out of place, there's unusual damage on it. Stealing vehicles right now. Most thieves that we get for stolen vehicles will try and open doors. Okay? And they'll keep trying to open doors. And if they don't find one, then how do they get in the vehicle? Smash a window. Okay? And you know what? If they've stolen vehicles in the past, they know that they don't want to smash the driver's side window. Do you know why?
They gotta sit there. They gotta sit on it.
They got to sit on it. Okay? And it's cold. So they'll smash a back window. Okay? Backside window to get in the vehicle. So you take a look. If you see a vehicle driving around and it's missing one of the windows, that's a good suspicious vehicle. That's something you're going to phone the local detachment. Let them know. Log report. This is what you do. Tombstone information, and then your times. Location, made a patrol of the high school, the Olds High School. Drove through the parking lot, no vehicles. All windows appeared secure. Sorry? Well, well, unless you're going to crawl up there. Personally, I'm not going to. Okay? But you made a patrol through the school. You documented it. You never noticed anything. You write it in your report. Parking lot, no vehicles parked in the parking lot. All the windows and doors appeared to be secured. Okay? Next one, time. Went downtown, drove through the back alleys on 4th, between 4th and 5th, because we know from our local police officers that there's been a lot of thefts in that area. Drove through, 2 vehicles were parked in the back alley, plate number such and such. Goes in your report. Is it suspicious? Not necessarily, but it's what you saw. And it's those little tidbits of information that will really help the police officers later on. Because those people might not be involved in the theft, but for some reason their vehicles were in the area and they might have seen something. So we're going to query those plates, we're going to find out who the registered owners are, and then we're going to go talk to them. Your vehicle was parked in this area, we had a break and enter, did you see anything out of place? Okay? Gives us something to work with. Yeah. So make sure you put as much information in there as you can. Here's your incident report. Again, members, all your tombstone information, okay? And then this one gets a little bit more detailed. Date, time, location, what the weather conditions are, suspect vehicle, and all of the information. It's structured this way so it's asking you questions. You just saw a truck zipping around town, spinning donuts downtown, okay, throwing beer bottles out. It's asking you what color's the vehicle, what type of vehicle it is. So what it's doing is structuring it in such a way it gives us really concise information. Because I can tell you when it's the heat of the moment this is happening, most people are going to say it's a truck. I think maybe dark color. But you're going to train yourself to start paying attention. And what you're going to do when you're on your patrols, when Les and Jeremy are out on patrols, Jeremy's driving, so what's Jeremy doing? He's paying attention, being a safe and courteous driver. Les is going to start practicing. We're driving down the street, and Jeremy's going to say, what was that guy wearing that we just passed the block before? And Les should be able to say, okay, he was wearing a hat, a hoodie, whatever. If I don't know, go around the block and check it again. Practice your observation skills. This is a skill. We don't come by it naturally. We see something happening, it registers, but we don't pay attention. We don't focus on it. That's the difference between driving around and patrolling. Patrolling, you're watching. So practice this skill. Practice answering these questions, even when it's not happening, so that when it does happen, you're ready. ACOPA iPatrol is the one I was talking about. It's available for iPad and other phones now. You can just download it. Again, it's a free app. There have been some issues with the Android phones. Bev and Henry are working on it right now. But for the Apple one, it works awesome. When I went up to Whitecourt, I actually started it when I was in Edmonton, and it tracked me all the way up to Whitecourt. It showed which route I took because it's got the map feature on it. Okay, I could have stopped and taken pictures. I told Bev when she showed it to me the first time, I said, I'm going to use it for holidays. Because I'll have an accurate timeline for my entire holidays, and I can associate photographs. So then you can pull up the map and there's a photograph associated with it. And she said, that's not what it's supposed to be used for. Okay? But it is out there. It's an incredible app. If you haven't used it, download it and give it a try. What to look for while on patrol. Who, what, where, when, why. Suspicious vehicles, buildings, residents, people, suspicious situations. This is where the Habitual Offender Management Program, the one I told you about, where we're targeting 10% of the population who do 80% of the crime. And I shouldn't say target, because what the RCMP or police services all over the province are doing with these 10% of the population is looking at causal factors. Why are they in this lifestyle? What is causing them to commit crime to support themselves? And we're working with a lot of partner agencies and trying to get them out of this lifestyle. But what the police do in this program is develop a relationship with the individuals and monitor them. And part of them is when you have a habitual offender management person identified, every single police officer in that detachment knows who this person is and knows that if they see them doing anything, even if it's normal activity, you have to look at it through different eyes. Through eyes that that person is involved in crime. So I could tell you that one subject that we had when I was in Creston, we identified him as our priority offender. His picture went up on our bulletin wall, so every single police officer in the detachment knew who he was. And one day I'm sitting at Black Bear Books having coffee, because it's a book and coffee shop, on Main Street, Creston, and I saw this same individual walking down Main Street, Creston, with a 42-inch TV. Okay, normally it's in the middle of the day. Someone walking down the street with a 42-inch TV is not out of place. Okay? What is out of place is when now you view it through the eyes that this subject commits crime to live. He has a terrible drug addiction. Everything he does is to feed that addiction. So when I look at this individual now with those eyes, it becomes very suspicious. So the police officers in your detachment cannot come out and tell you who the habitual offenders are in your community. But I have a little secret for you. This is your community. You know who's committing crimes. You know who your local druggies are. So those people you look at a little differently. And if they're walking down Main Street, Olds, carrying a 42-inch TV, this maybe is something that I should report to the local detachment. Because I could tell you when we went to go arrest that individual, he was trading that 42-inch TV for drugs with our #1 street dealer in town. And we got 2 for the price of 1. Okay? Because I looked at this individual through a little different eyes. So that's what you have to do. You know, this is your community. I could tell you when I went to high school in Shelburne, Saskatchewan, I knew who the drug dealers were. But I wasn't part of an organization that was taking responsibility for my community. You are. You're saying, the old saying, it takes an entire community to raise a child. It takes an entire community to make a community safe. So if you see someone that you know is involved in that lifestyle, document it, okay? Put that in your reports. But that's what can be a suspicious situation, is using the knowledge you already have to look at this situation. As a group, what I want you to do is identify someone at your table who's going to write on this paper. There should be markers. We're going to watch a short video, and I want you to document what you see.
I lied to you, okay?
Was this a 911 call? Why? Break and enter in progress. Why do you think it was a break and enter in progress? Okay, one guy was carrying a crowbar, the other guy was carrying a sledgehammer. Is that a little bit suspicious? Yeah, it's not in a construction zone. It's in the parking lot of a motel with a restaurant. Normally you use a crowbar to open doors? Unless you lost your key. And you don't mind damaging it. So yes, this was a 911 call. What was the first thing you saw?
2 men wearing hoodies.
2 men wearing hoodies. Okay, one guy had a black hoodie?
The other one had plaid shirt.
Was it plaid or was it camouflage? Okay, that's why 3 people could see the exact same thing and have 3 different versions of the story. Okay, how tall was the grandfather? How do you know that? What's the standard size of a door, not looking at these doors? 6'8". Okay? So if you see someone standing beside a normal door, compare their height. If you walk into a 7-Eleven, you'll always notice that they have a height chart right beside the door. Okay? So the grandfather was the one wearing the camo jacket? Yes. What tool was he carrying? Crowbar. Was he wearing gloves? Yes. How do you know that? Where did you see the gloves?
When he was on the door.
Prying the door. Okay. Was he wearing a hat?
Yes.
What kind of hat? So when you're describing him to the police officer, should that officer be looking for him with a hat? No. Why?
He left it in the bush.
Is that detail important?
Yes.
Because if you describe him with a ball cap, they're looking for a ball cap. So yes, I saw him with a ball cap at the beginning, but when he was running away, he threw the ball cap in the bush. Why would that ball cap be really important? DNA. Okay. Or scent for a dog. It gives you a location. If I have a dog in close proximity, that gives me a scent. Okay. So do you go grab the ball cap?
No.
No. You leave it there. You're staying in the area. You're waiting for the police to show up, and you're going to indicate somewhere in that vicinity. I saw him drop what appeared to be a ball cap and something else. Okay. The second subject. What was he wearing?
A black or a dark hoodie.
Was he bigger or smaller than the other guy?
Probably 6 foot.
Yeah. So if the other guy, if Grandpa was 5'8", the other guy was obviously well over 6 feet. Okay. What type of instrument was he carrying?
Sledgehammer.
Okay. So you guys wrote all of this stuff down. Okay. And it just points, right? Well, let's do this again. But instead of using that big sheet of paper, I want you to use your incident report. And do it as an individual now. And we had one person who was right on the ball. Do you know what that one person did? What's worth 1,000 words? Who took a video of this incident? Who also thought about doing that? If you put your hand up, I'm going to say bull something. Because otherwise, why didn't you do it? Okay, I gave you lots of time. This one, you don't get to use your phone. So put your phones away. We're going to watch another one, and I want you to use the form and go through it. Write down what you saw. Was this a suspicious event?
Yes.
Was this one that you would call 911 on?
Yes.
When would you call 911?
As soon as we saw the bolt cutters.
As soon as you saw them going bolt cutters and going like this. Okay? If it's my garage and you're using bolt cutters, unfortunately, I got to admit that I have on occasion had to use bolt cutters when I've lost keys. I'm not looking over my shoulder every 30 seconds to see if someone's watching me. So with the fact that this is an industrial area, it's 2 guys, they're looking over their shoulders the whole time they're doing bolt cutting or using the bolt cutters, This is, I phone right now. I don't wait to see what's happening. I go 911, there's a break and enter in progress at this location. Okay, first thing, as soon as they answer 911, this is, I'm watching a break and enter in progress at this location happening right now. So that the 911 operator can make the decision, should I dispatch a car before I ask for any information, or should I, based on their policies and procedures, she or he will make that decision. But you tell them first thing is 911, this is what it is. Okay? I'm prepared. And it's right off the bat. Subject number 1, the guy with the bolt cutters. Describe him to me.
69 and a half pounds.
Okay, was he wearing gloves? Gloves or mitts? White mitts. Okay? We're going to focus on him now. So he's the first one in the door. What did he do when he's coming out?
Directing.
Okay. What's he wearing on his feet? Shoes. Yeah. It's winter time. Okay. He had runners. And I've had the benefit of watching this in slow motion. Because I put it on there. So yes, he was wearing running shoes. He's got a black coat.
Black leather coat.
Leather coat. Okay. Does he have a hoodie under that black leather coat? Yes. Okay. Is he the taller of the two? Yeah. Okay. And he was closer, I would say, because if you look at that door, if you assume that's 6'8", he's about 6'1", 6'2", and a half. Okay. So, is he of any type of skin color that you would comment on? Okay. You can't say nationality because all nationalities are different. But his skin tone appeared to be a darker. Okay? And it's okay to say that. That it appeared to be dark. Second subject. What was he wearing?
A black coat and a hoodie underneath. Gray hoodie.
Wasn't it just a hoodie?
It was a hoodie that had print on it.
Yeah, it had writing on it. Okay? Was he wearing gloves or mitts? Black gloves. Okay? Were either of them wearing hats? What color were their hair? Was their hair? Both of them, dark hair. Okay? Glasses. What's that?
Brown, bone kind of colored. They were brown.
The glasses were?
Yeah, bone colored.
I got to tell you, I've never noticed that. Okay? So that's what I'm saying is you've got to learn to pay attention. So this was a perfect time. You got on the phone, you go 911, you're describing it. So then what did they load on that trailer? What time of the year was it?
Winter time.
So let's say you saw this truck driving down the road with a lawnmower on the back, on a trailer. Not necessarily suspicious, but it's out of context.
City of Winnipeg getting ready for spring.
Or that is spring in City of Winnipeg.
What I learned in doing this is it's really hard to write and look at things. So if there were two of you, one person should say, "I'll write," or
Yeah.
just call it out and write. Because I just ran into that with a guy who's a drunk driver or something. He almost hit a car, parked a car. He cut us off, and my daughter's like, she could see the license plate, and I just said, "Read it out to me," because she's driving and I couldn't write and look at the plate because it was dark.
So something else that will help is a dictaphone. Or you can actually get the apps on your phones where it's a dictaphone to where you press a button and you're talking and it's taking the description instead of you trying to write it. Or can you put video on your phone? Take a video. I can't tell you how much this will help. Get used to using a video on your phone. Have it ready to go. To press the button, bang, you're videotaping it.
Some of the videos don't turn out so good.
It's certainly a whole lot better than you trying to describe what you just saw in 30 seconds. And you could dictate at the same time. Yeah. Okay. Dash cams are a great tool. They're available out there. And I would say if you're COP, you should be looking at setting that up in the vehicles. That's part of your toolkit that goes out. Just put the dash cam right on. Okay? Because then you turn it, you start video, and you're dictating at the same time.
Can you, maybe you'll probably get to this, but and I know you're not supposed to chase them, but can you follow at a fairly safe distance? So you can at least say that they went this direction or they went that direction.
You cannot follow them. Period. If you're making a patrol on Main Street, Olds, and you notice an impaired driver all over the road, and you call 911, you could still continue to drive in the same direction you were going. And if that vehicle still continues to go in that same direction, you can keep going in that same direction. The moment that vehicle turns off, and a lawyer would say, was that your normal patrol to turn the same way, or would have you normally gone straight? If you would have said, I'm normally going to go straight, keep going straight. You could go the same direction as a suspect vehicle, but you can't chase a suspect vehicle. You cannot follow. And I got to tell you, I've had, where I've done this training program, and I've had someone put up their hand saying, well, when we called it in, OCC said just follow that vehicle. I got to tell you right now, no. Too much of a liability, too much of a risk. Get as good of details as you possibly can, and then call them in. Because the worst thing that you can do is make them suspicious, and then they accelerate or start driving in a dangerous manner. As police officers, for us to actually chase somebody now, and I keep saying us, even though I'm no longer one of us, I'm a has-been, okay? We don't chase vehicles unless we can articulate that by having to chase that vehicle and stop it will prevent someone from getting hurt. Plain and simple. We will not engage in chases anymore because there's been too many people killed. So the worst thing you can do is start following someone and spooking them and then them accelerating and trying to get away. So get as much detail as you possibly can, get a picture if you possibly can, and then let them go. So in this particular incident, what type of truck was it? Okay, how do you know it's a GMC? Because I had one other person tell me it was a GMC in 1990s.
GMC on the back.
Okay, because I couldn't see that. But the one guy that told me before, and I've gone through the video, is the taillight is a GM taillight. So, yeah, if you know your vehicles, you could say it's a white GM pulling a trailer with a lawnmower in the trailer. There's not too many of those in the middle of the winter in Winnipeg.
An orange lawn.
Okay?
Probably a Husky dog.
So, will the police recognize that? Of course. It's going to stand out. All right? So, as much detail as you can, but no, you don't chase them or follow them. If in your normal patrol is I go down here and I turn left at the hardware store and they keep going straight, turn left. You don't chase them, you don't follow them. You gave the details, you're the eyes and ears. You're not there to enforce. You got to let the guys carrying the guns do that. And we're going to talk too a little bit about branding. The previous 3 courses I stood up here and I told everybody at those courses, do not put signage on your vehicles. And the reason that I did that is because too many police cars are being rammed. If these people will ram a police car with an armed police officer sitting in them, what do you think they'll do to you? But having said that, I've talked to ACOPA board, the president, and they're saying that they're not going to make that decision for you. That each individual group needs to sit down with their liaison officer or the detachment commander and discuss whether or not you should be putting COP on your door when you're traveling on your patrols. That has to be an internal discussion between you and your police service. I got to tell you, I still firmly believe you shouldn't, but I'm not the decision maker. So this is a discussion that needs to be in your policies and procedures, and it needs to be articulated how you came to that decision. In discussion with, okay? Because certain communities do. They put those magnetic signs right on their doors so that when they're out on patrol and someone sees their vehicle, they see that sign. Having said that, if you go into the coffee shop, take that off your door and lock it away. Because what's to stop a criminal from stealing that magnetic sign and sticking it on their vehicle when they make a patrol? With different reasons. Okay? So if you have that signage, it has to be protected. If you're going to put it on your vehicle doors, it has to be visible, very clearly. I would say make it big enough that if anyone sees it, that they know what it is. And your community has to know what COP is. So you should be doing reports in the media. So when COP is out making patrols, you will see our sign. Okay? And you have to be extra vigilant. Because if you do come across these people stealing vehicles, they will ram through a window to get to a vehicle in here. If they see you driving down the road, they will ram you.
Is that covered underneath the insurance?
That's covered under your personal insurance. I don't think it would be covered under ACOPA. I don't know. That's something, maybe a question that has to be asked. I have asked Bev to bring this up to their ACOPA board because last 3 times I've stood up here and I said, don't. Now I have to tell you, that's your choice with your group and with consultation with your police officers. They will tell you whether they want you to have signage or not. What are the risk factors you're looking at? And it's got to be uniform. It can't be, yeah, some people do and some people don't. Your entire group has to follow that policy and procedure. So you don't chase people, and if you do have signage on your door, be aware that could be a target for some people. And if you go into a coffee shop or you're away from your vehicle at any time, you need to take that signage off your vehicle so it can't be stolen.
We look at it as having the signage on there gives a deterrent to people that are going to come doing crime. If they see there's somebody else driving around other than the RCMP, they may go to Bentley instead of Rimby to do their crime because there's an extra set of eyes. There's somebody watching them. So we do use the signage. But on the other hand, as you say, if they're driving the stolen vehicle.
Even 10 years ago, I'd have said 100% put that signage on your door. But in the last 5 to 6 years, the level of violence directed towards police officers, when they're out in marked police cars carrying guns, has skyrocketed. So you have to be cognizant of that. A lot of these guys who are stealing these vehicles are stealing these vehicles to commit other crimes. Have long histories and know that our court system could care less if they ram a police car. They'll get charged with mischief, not criminal intent to commit homicide. Okay? Because if you're ramming a police car, you're trying to injure that police officer. And we have had no convictions of attempted murder yet. There's a couple of people right now before the courts for that. But I'm not aware of any convictions yet. Okay? So that's why I'm saying signage, if you're in a parade, cover your vehicle. If you're helping to do traffic directions, have a COP or flagging, have a COP vest on. Lots of coverage. If you're at a community event, have your COP t-shirts on and lots of branding. Yes. Talk to your media. Your community should know you're already out there. This should be a COP community. We care about our community. Okay? Everybody coming here should know COP's here. Have the signage up. People should be talking about it. So that If they're going to commit a break and enter, they're going to say, we're not going to Olds because we know people are patrolling. They should know that beforehand. It is a deterrent. That's why most police officers drive marked cars. Visibility is a deterrent. But again, they have all the safety measures. You guys have a flashlight and a cell phone. So, big flash. No, and that's something else. With your flashlight. How many have those long C-cell flashlights?
We do.
Okay? Why do you carry a big flashlight like that? Potential club. Do you know what it's classified under the criminal code? As a weapon. If you use it on somebody, it now is becoming a weapon. Okay? Most police officers no longer carry the big flashlight. Because you could get these small ones that are way brighter and you could carry in your pocket with you all the time. Okay? Way better. And you're not tempted to hit somebody over the head with your flashlight. They tripped, yeah. No, they didn't trip. So I would suggest, again, it's a recommendation. I can't tell you what to do. Don't use those great big flashlights. Get the little stingers, or there's lots of different brand names out there that are like 1,500 looms. They'll light this whole parking lot up. And you can pick them up for $50. Okay, and you could carry them in your pocket. That's that much better flashlight, in my opinion, than those great big long ones. If you're carrying that great big long one, it's tempting to then use it as a weapon. And why do you need a weapon if you never get out of your car? Bright like that. Okay? Oh, and it's got the safety flash that's blinding people, the one on TV. If you blind someone with a flashlight, you're going to chase them away. No. Okay? Okay, we're going to talk about observation versus surveillance. And this is where we're going to talk a little bit about chasing vehicles. What's observation? Yeah, keeping your eyes open. You're driving around, you're observing what's happening. You're paying attention to your spidey senses. If something's out of place, I'm going to stop and I'm going to try and figure out what's out of place. Why does this strike me as wrong? Okay? And you're going to document it. That's what you do. You're the eyes of the community. You're driving around, not looking for anything specific, but anything that's suspicious. Vehicles with broken windows. Okay? Do any of your clubs do the vehicle watch program? Where you have the little packages saying that we drove by your vehicle and we noticed your doors were open and you had your cell phone and your GPS and your passport all sitting on the seat? Some groups will have little flyers. You don't open the doors or lock the doors. Lots of groups, what they'll do is they'll take that flyer saying, we drove by, we noticed all this stuff in your vehicle. It was citizens on patrol doing vehicle checks, and put it under a windshield wiper. Do not open the vehicle. But this is what you're doing. You're observing. You're paying attention to what's happening in your community. Surveilling. Okay? The difference. Observation versus surveillance. You've met with your local detachment member at the beginning of your shift. Maybe sat down, you had a coffee or whatever, you went into the office, and they said, we've had a rash of thefts from vehicles in this neighborhood. Can you pay particular attention to this area on your patrols tonight? And our habitual offender management or habitual offender person that we're identifying, okay, I can't tell you his name because he hasn't been charged with anything. But you should be paying particular attention to any Ford truck that has a white Z stripe on it. Because we have information that a truck fitting this description has been involved in thefts. Okay? Now you're looking for specific things. You're in a specific area, you're looking for a specific vehicle. That's surveillance. You have prior knowledge, you're looking for something. Or the police officers, when you met with them, said we've got a particular problem in this liquor store, we're getting a whole bunch of kids trying to buy booze in this area. The owners are on 100% on side trying to stop this from happening, but they can't watch the outside. Would you mind sitting in the parking lot a few blocks or a few lots down and just tell us if you see something happening? Okay? We've given you something to look for. And one person brought up, well, doesn't that make us an agent? No. An agent is where we're getting you to be involved in criminal activity and then tell us what's going on. We're still asking you to just surveil or observe specific things. This is where that relationship is so important. This is where having that communication strategy is so important. Whether it's verbal, where they're saying this is the issue at the beginning of your shift, we want you to look for this area or stick around this area, or do they send out an email once a week? These are the issues that we're dealing with. In your patrols, stick to these areas or monitor this area. Okay? Something going on at the high school. We've had a bunch of rashes of thefts at the high school. Maybe increase numbers of patrols. Okay? Communication has to go both ways. The police service has to let you know what the issues are, and you have to let the police service know what you see. And there has to be structured so that when Rick does it one way, when Robin does it the next night, the communication strategy is exactly the same. It's not because Rick buys coffee all the time that he has a better relationship with the guys wearing uniform. Because the guys wearing uniform won't let Rick buy coffee, right? Because they have strong ethics and values. Or they'll take turns. They'll buy him coffee one night and he'll buy them coffee. But it shouldn't depend on your relationship. It should depend on the fact that you're a COP member and there's a communication strategy in place. At the end of your patrol, if it's your police service that is your lifeline, the beginning of this shift, I notified the police service that I was going out. You notify that same agency or person, our shift is over. Or, you know what, there's a lot of stuff going on tonight, we're going to extend it 2 hours, so we've extended. But there's got to be that communication at the beginning and the end of your shift. Fill out the odometer if you're getting paid for mileage. And even if you're not, you should be keeping track. Because this is a great fundraising tool. When ACOPA goes to the province and asks for funding, they could say, our volunteers have put in this many miles. And with this new carbon tax that we're dealing with and the cost of gas going up, it's costing us money. I don't think they should talk about the carbon tax. I just threw that out there. Okay? Your patrol log, one patrol log for both people. Both of your names on there. You go through it. Yes, we both agree to it and you both sign it. It's done. If it was an incident, one incident sheet, bang, done. Okay? But then you also have what with you? Your personal journal. Okay? You make sure you put the notes in there and are done. I generally would do it right after the incident. I wouldn't wait till the end of my shift to write it in there. The incident happens, the police get there, gives me a chance to write it out. Okay? So you have it all documented. And what they're saying is if an incident occurred, most often the police officers will ask you for a statement. If you've done this 4 or 5 times already, you're going to know the structure that they're looking for. And so you can start out a true version statement. This is what happened, the 5 W's, bang, bang, bang. But don't sign it until the police officer actually sits down with you, reviews it, and asks you any other questions. And then hand in all reports as soon as possible. In regards to incident reports, like I said before, I would look at how your group handles these. Instead of handing them in bulk to the police officers or the police station, have someone that compiles them, okay, into one report. Because the likelihood of that one report getting read is a lot more likely. I guess that makes sense. The likelihood is much more likely, okay? Instead of handing them a whole pile of papers. Because again, that means someone has to go through every single thing. Bike patrols. Anyone do bike patrols here? This is an option. This is one, if you're going to do a bike patrol, you should have a bike course. Your bike has to be in good shape. And I would suggest it should have a light on the front and a light on the back. It should have a first aid kit with you. It should have a repair kit with you. You certainly can't carry that great big suitcase. So it should be a smaller emergency kit that you do carry. And this is one where high visibility clothing is a must. And in the province of Alberta, what do you wear on your head? A helmet. Okay? You need to follow the municipal bylaws of their community in regards to safety. So make sure your bike's in good shape. Make sure that you're wearing all the safety equipment and high visibility clothing. And be in good shape. I've had knee replacements, so when I try to ride a bike, it's like, oof, oof. Okay, so bike patrols with me don't go along, don't work. If you're going to be doing this type of patrolling, do it that you're capable of doing it. Okay? And always, how many people on a bike patrol? Minimum of 2. Again, same thing with the vehicle patrol. Know the start of your patrol, end of the patrol. Your lifeline has to know that. Foot patrols. These are generally, like City of Edmonton has foot patrols, not a COP, but they're like a help group, and they'll walk in groups of 4 or 5. The only problem with foot patrols is you don't have your vehicle as a safety measure. You're right out there in the open. Do any of your groups initiate foot patrols at this time? Okay. Again, if you're going to do it, always minimum of 2. High visibility clothing. And this one, I would suggest that you do wear Citizens on Patrol. Let people know that you're out there. Generally, I don't see the real need of it in small communities. It's more the larger centers. Because in most small towns, like Olds, would walking up and down the street actually be a deterrent at nighttime? I personally don't think it would be. I think the COP vehicle driving around is more of a deterrent. You'd cover more ground. And there's not a lot of activity. But in parks, in some of the communities, they'll do COP foot patrols in parks. And again, minimum of 2. People know what time your patrol starts, the time that it ends. And the most important thing, I had one group tell me they were doing a patrol in a park. They noticed some kids at a basketball court smashing beer bottles. And they approached them. They ended up having to call for help. It was a 911 call. Okay, and someone got hurt. If you see it, same thing. Stay a safe distance. Call it in. Mischief. Okay, this is not a 911 call, but this is a call to the local detachment. We're making a foot patrol, and we notice a group of young guys and girls smashing bottles in the basketball court.
If you were walking down the sidewalk with your COP badge on the back of your coat, would you not be a target for an empty beer bottle?
In that particular case, yeah. Again, that's why I say, in your community, you have to have that discussion. Is it a good time to be wearing your branding to let people know that who you are, or not? And you got to trust that with your community, that your local police service and your individuals who work in COP have to look at your risk. With me, it's why are you doing this patrol? I would never do foot patrols at night, plain and simple. I don't do them as a police officer. Wearing a bulletproof vest and a gun, I would not do foot patrols at night. These foot patrols are more daytime, high visibility to show that we're more branding, I think, more of a community things if something's going on. Like Canada Day. What we did in Creston, the COP did the barricades for the parade. All the members wore COP clothing, high visibility. Positive events, letting people know COP is involved in your community. So foot patrols are they're a real iffy one because, like I say, you lose the safety of your vehicle. So again, as your group, you have to look at it. I talk about it because it's in your safety manual, But it's entirely up to your group if you're going to do it. And you have to take a look at risk levels. That's why I'm saying I wouldn't do downtown. And if I did at a park, it would be daytime patrols only. You do not walk in the night. Special events. Fantastic thing to get involved in. The only caveat that ACOPA puts on is do not take on responsibility of what someone, a paid group, would do. Like we've had people call up Citizens on Patrol and say, we're having a car show this weekend and we want to have you as security. No. That's not your role. What are you? Eyes and ears of your community. You're not security. So do not do security. They could go hire a security company. If they want you to stand at the gate and help direct traffic as volunteers, great. You know what? We're helping out. We're wearing OLS or RIMBY Citizens on Patrol. We're letting people know that we're involved in community events. Okay? There was a tattoo festival, or Taboo Festival in Edmonton. Anybody attend? Sort of a trick question. It's all the sex toys. Okay? I would suggest that maybe this is not something that COP wants to be involved in. So look at the event. Ask questions. What is this event for? Is it promoting positive things in our community? And not saying taboo is a negative. It's just, I thought it was quite funny. Okay? Look at what the event is. Is it reinforcing or developing positive relationships or positive things in our community? Yes, then we want to be involved. Is it a community event? Maybe we could put up a table and explain to people what COP does. Because what's the hardest thing in your group?
Education.
Okay? Recruitment and retention. What's the average age of COP in this province right now? It's close to 60. Okay? Trying to get younger people involved in this is important. Okay? Getting people, because a lot of younger people say, you know what, I've got kids, I've got all these other things going on in my life, and I can only focus on one volunteer thing. Well, let's make COP that volunteer thing. We've got to show how COP is taking charge of their community. They're becoming and taking ownership back. Because like I said, in the 70s and 80s, police services told everybody crime belongs to us. It didn't work. What's happened to crime since then? Okay, it's become commonplace. And when you see a criminal activity, is the first inclination to phone the police? No. If the police come talk to me, I'll tell you. But most times the police don't know to even come talk to you. Okay? We need to start talking about it again. So this is what COP does at these community events. COP says we're a group of community residents, everyday normal residents just like you who want to make a difference. We're not going to go out and arrest bad guys. We're not the vigilante. We're the eyes and ears of this community. And if we're the eyes and ears, we then have a responsibility to talk. So we tell people in our community that we're all involved. That it's okay to deal with people in our community who are committing crime. We don't necessarily want them to go to jail, because I can tell you right now, jail is the university for criminals. I have had more success in my career dealing with community peer pressure. When I was stationed in Two Hills, Alberta, I stopped this young guy stunting, okay? I pull him over, and he's sitting there and go, give me my ticket. And I go, what do you? So I do a query, find out that vehicle's been checked several other times, have a conversation. He says, I work in the oil patch. You know what? Give me my $125 ticket and I'm on my way. Couldn't care less. Had several tickets written. Okay? Couldn't care less that his insurance was over $2,000. Couldn't care less. He's making huge bucks. Okay? But I happened to notice when I queried the plate, it came back to a different name. Different first name, same surname. It belonged to his dad. So I told this young man, you know what? I'm not giving you a ticket today. But I'm going to your house right now. To your dad's house. And I'm going to have a conversation with him. You can't do that. Yeah, I can. So I go to the house, I knock at the door, the kid follows me there. And the dad's, you see a policeman on your doorstep, you get a little worried. Especially when your son's out, you know he's a crazy driver. Okay? You're worried, and I say, hey, I'm not here for anything terrible. Like I just want to have a conversation with you. Are you aware that this is what's happening? Your truck is being involved in this dangerous type of driving on several occasions. Never had a problem with stunting with that young man again. Okay? But by just charging and charging and charging, nothing was happening. Community peer pressure. Okay? Works. We have to step forwards and start making a difference. So you're the eyes and ears, but you're also the mouth. Both in talking to the police, but also spreading the message to the rest of the community. So at community events, it is so important that you get involved. So important that if there is a community event coming up, go and volunteer as a group. Our COP group wants to be involved. How can we do it? If it's a parade, be involved in a parade. If it's a community event where you could set up a tent or a booth, do that. Let people know that you're standing up and you want to make a difference. And right now, COP across this province is doing that. It's the fastest growing community group in the province. And it's because you have a small group of dedicated people who are giving people like yourselves who are going, how do we make a difference? A venue or an opportunity to do it. So step forwards, talk about it, be open about COP so that communities know COP belongs or is involved in Olds, in Rimbey, in all of these other communities, that this is a COP community. Speed watch, is that anyone doing that? I know Sherwood Park does it, Fort Saskatchewan. What they do is they get those electronic signs up and it monitors this vehicle speed. Well, what the COP does is they're there and then they hand out pamphlets from the province Department of Transportation in regards to the dangers of speeding in rural areas of the community. Okay? It's just a visible presence again. They do wear COP paraphernalia at this time because they're showing that this is an issue in their community. So if speeding is an issue in your community, what can your group do? Speed watch. Flagging, this is some of the groups are trained to be flaggers. You cannot flag in this province. You are not covered by the insurance unless you're certified by the Department of Transportation. So ACOPA right now is setting up flagging courses that if you go on their website or check with one of the board members, they can let you know when this is taking place. And if you want to send people, it's free. And it gives you an option to help the police officers if they're, say, at an accident scene and before the professional flaggers can get there, to where you can have all your equipment and the signage in your vehicles when you're making your patrols and you can help out. Again, you can't do it unless you're trained and you have the proper equipment though. So it's again, just stepping forwards. How can we help? Is this an issue in our community? Can we help? Is this a gap that we can fill? Okay, the question is that someone was saying, should they be using pencil when they take their notes? And I'm saying no. And here's a perfect example of the book that I'm talking about. It's hard ringed, or it's hard binder, no rings, the pages are numbered, and it's in ink. What a good, she really helps, eh? She's my yin to my yang, is that? Okay, so yes, if you are making your notes, do it in pen. Any other questions?
the course training standard for initial training now? Would this be considered it? Like, I understand there's supplemental training, there's a lot of, things to cover that's within the reference manual. Would this be considered just perhaps the beginning, and then,
Okay.
or is there a standard?
Okay. So the question is this the training that you need? Is it the beginning training and then there's follow-up training? Yes. This is the training that's needed so that you can be insured through this ACOPA's insurance plan. You have to have gone through this training. It follows the training manual that the insurance company signed off. There is follow-up training that you can take, note-taking, attending court, flagging. There's courses that maybe your local detachment on how to observe, okay? Different scenarios that they might play through, how to deal with different types of situations. But training has to be an integral part of your group. It should be built right in to your meeting schedule, bringing in different types of training.
Who can deliver initial training?
Right now, anybody that I've trained on Train the Trainer program, this is the training. This isn't Train the Trainer. There were 67 people that I did Train the Trainer in High River. But any police officer can do this training. They can get a copy of this training from ACOPA, and they'll send them a stick with all of this material on it, because you have to have the videos embedded into it. But anybody that takes the Train the Trainer course can do it, or any police officer. So the question is, how are you guys managing your schedules? Because we have mostly new groups in here. Are most of you just doing it as people volunteer, or do you have a dedicated schedule up? Facebook? Okay. So you're putting it on Facebook so that everybody can see if someone's filled those spots.
But it's a private Facebook.
A private Facebook. You have to be a COP member to access that.
Yes.
Okay. Most of the detachments, most of them are smaller detachments. And you do run vacancies, and there's just no money in the provincial and federal budgets to have extra bodies to fill in those holes. And so unfortunately, as an organization, we run vacancies. Historically, we would run vacancies to save money. Now it's just, we're spending every single penny, and we're having to prioritize what we do, and partnership. That's why I'm saying a lot of detachment commanders now, if you approach them in the right way and saying, I'm here to help you, are going to be looking for that lifeline as well. Because they're struggling. They're saying, we are dedicated individuals who want to make a difference in our community, and we can't do it alone anymore. And so I think in the future, you're going to see it more and more where partnerships like this are really going to work. And you're going to see more people, more agencies stepping forward. So that's why COP is the fastest growing group in this province right now. So.
The other issue we have at Gull Lake North is that we don't have consistent cell phone coverage in our entire area. So we looked at walkie-talkies, and it's not a viable option for us. We have funding that we can get in place to buy the equipment for us, but there's not equipment out there that will work in our lake neighborhood with the trees and the water and the hills and all the rest of it. So we have huge communication problems. Yeah,
and so it's really good if you put that on maps so that everybody who's on patrol knows that this is a dead area and where the next, so if something happens, they know they have to drive to this intersection to get cell phone coverage. So that's something that you have to include into your training then. If you have dead spots in your patrol areas, where's the closest place that they can get to that they will now have cell phone coverage? And that's part of your training. So, and you should have that right in your policies and procedures or your training manual that you do. So, any other questions?
I guess with Bob said there's 10% of the people that are doing 80% of the crime. So any day that you're feeling that you'd like to go to the courthouse without your lawyer by your side and go sit in the back room, you would see who the repeat offenders are in a lot of the communities. And it's just a little knowledge to put in the back of your group or someplace that when you're out cruising around and you see that guy carrying a TV down the street, you know how many times he's been through the courtroom.
Yeah, there's all different ways of getting this information. Like my habitual offender program, when I was running it in Creston, I couldn't produce the person's name until we had actually charged them. And then once a person is charged, that person's name is public knowledge about that particular charge. So then I could say, Dave Jones has been charged with thefts in this area. And he drives a truck with a zigzag on it. Okay?
That I see here, we talk a lot about the habitual offenders in the town and that sort of thing. I think here in Olds we're getting a hell of a lot of them that are coming from Calgary and Red Deer and all throughout this whole line. I don't know what you do with them because they're all coming in and stolen vehicles.
We are getting crews that are going top to bottom of this province, east to west, right into Saskatchewan and BC. Provincial and territorial boundaries mean nothing to them. The last group of guys that they just took down in Edmonton had stolen vehicles from this entire province, when a chop shop. And so yes, we are getting traveling criminals, and that's tough because they're not your known people. Like you can't look at them through that vision of they're a known entity in our community. But you watch for them, because what they'll do is they will patrol to see if the lights are on a business. They might come the day before and stay in the hotel room and go out that night and drive around and do absolutely nothing, but just to check to see if someone's out making patrols, see if there's a citizens on patrol group, see what businesses have security things in them. A good thing is if you have someone that's done a break and enter in here, go through the security tapes of the day before. Did someone come in to check, see where they put the keys for that vehicle? These guys are professional thieves. This is what they do for a living. And so they'll come out and scope out places. So, but they don't wear t-shirts that say, I'm a thief. They look like normal people. Most of them are clean cut. Okay? When you see the security videos, they never have the scraggly appearances and the ripped clothing. They're guys that you would see on the street every single day. They know not to wear anything distinctive. But that's why they steal vehicles and then they burn them afterwards, so there's no fingerprints or DNA. But they'll come out and they'll come to a dealership like this. They'll walk through. They might even talk to a salesman, pretend they're interested in the vehicle.
We had that about 6 months ago. The fact when we were at a stop credit check, it didn't find out who he was, with all the stations, but he was asking where we kept the keys and how late we're open, are we open Sundays, what time it's closed, what time the movies is open till. And we watched him, we had no enough to tag him to, but clean cut, dress well done. So the salesman, Spidey sense went up and said, okay, looked a little, he asked some weird questions.
And that's why this type of training, all the business owners in town should get it. Like to be suspicious about when someone comes in and starts asking about what hours are you open? I don't see any cameras. How come you don't have cameras up? Or they'll pretend to be security specialists. Okay, they'll come in and say, we're coming around town to see if you're interested in a security system, and ask a whole bunch of questions. And then that night your place gets broken into because you gave them all of the information. This is where I hide the key under this rock in case I lose it. Okay? Or this is the punch code for my back door. These guys are professional thieves. So yeah, you trust yourself. They come in, something's not matching up. Okay? Go out and take a picture of that vehicle that they're driving. Phone the detachment. The detachment will do a quick query, bang, bang, bang. You know what? That's a stolen plate, because what they do is they steal a vehicle and they steal a plate from a different vehicle. So you can't be traced. So we'll get it back saying, hey, you know, that's supposed to be on a different type of truck, or it's supposed to be on a car, or that plate was stolen from so-and-so, so that we can start being more proactive. But that's what you're paying attention to. That's where the training is going to come into play.
Is there any place that would list stolen license plates? Because I know driving around you sometimes see where you think, you know, you see the clean license plate on a dirty vehicle and you think, okay, maybe a flag goes up.
But to phone the police for every little thing like that, I know for certain instances I have called and they were stolen vehicles, but it took them 3 days to do it, so I don't feel right.
Well, it shouldn't take them 3 days.
Right.
Again, it comes down to, are you phoning in 100 plates and only one out of those hundreds are actually, I'm phoning in 2 or 3 plates maybe on a week's time that just doesn't look, it's a clean plate on a dirty truck. So obviously there's something wrong here. Or there is no web page except for CPIC, which you don't have access to.
We do have access to CPIP, but not the license plates on it anymore. They've taken that.
That you've taken it away? Yeah. Other than that, I'm not aware of anything. Yeah. I don't know if one of the insurance companies or maybe BC Transportation, I don't know. I'm not aware of any.
If you Google that license plate, you should be able to have a Facebook post was here said my truck was stolen, or a Citizens on Patrol group has posted something in it.
Lots of people will do that on Facebook. Like I get it all the time from Shelbrook, Saskatchewan. My truck was stolen, and they put it on, but it's not consistent. There's no group out there doing that, because then they'd have to be privy too.
Well, if they could compile those, it would be very handy. And I'm not sure why we can't, because usually if you type in any, and you should have 1,000 pages with that license plate listed.
Yeah.
If it's been in different sites, but it doesn't.
Yeah. It's privacy issues are a big thing. Everybody's so scared of privacy issues and being sued. I can't answer that question. Like I agree. Like there's that TV program out right now where it's, what is it, where everything, all the crimes go on the system and it's access to everybody. Or in the UK, like everything is videotaped there. Like they have cameras that automatically, as you're going down the highway, take a flash picture of your license plate, do an automatic query, and bang, up comes a flag, that plate's been stolen. We're not at that stage right now, and I don't think we'll ever be with our rural. The number one most aggravating thing as a police officer is thefts of vehicles that people left the keys and the doors unlocked. My whole career, I would go to public meetings and say, lock your doors. And every year we would have hundreds of those, of people just walking down the street going, oh, that one worked. And then they clean it out. And there's Crime Stoppers, covers this province. If you phone into Crime Stoppers, you anonymously give that tip. That tip will go to the police detachment. So you don't even have to bring it up in a public venue or a public discussion. If you see something suspicious going on like that, and you know your neighborhood, and you know that this house is the drug house, put in a Crime Stoppers tip. I would love to where we get to the point in our society to where something like that happens, well, we bring it to our town council and we get together and we work with that owner of that property or that family and work with them to try and get them out of that lifestyle. That's the ultimate goal, but we're not there yet. Because right now, if crime happens, it's a police and court issue. Well, I firmly believe it's not. It's a community issue. And I would love to see where we get to that point, to where in my community, if on my block something's going is happening, that my block gets together, we go and talk to this person that's having these issues, how can we help to make sure that this doesn't continue? To where if you have a kid stunting, that police officers can go to the parents and say, this is what's happening, and the parent says, I'll take care of it, instead of, why are you picking on my son? We have to get back to where we own our community, to where we're responsible.
Report license plate, that's not a terrible idea, but I mean, is that not what COP department can do? And put that in their own portfolio and get triggers enough that police can investigate or let us know there's something going on?
To where, with what?
We do 10 rotations of 10 different groups, and every second group sees the same truck doing the same weird thing.
Well, that should be going into your patrol sheets, and that would be in the compiled report, and then that would be going to the police station here, and hopefully they'll action on it. Because their goal is to stop it from happening too. They want to be preventive and not reactive. And so if they get a complaint, you know what, this same truck has been involved in stunting driving all over town, and it's been in this same report for the last 3 weeks. Why doesn't that police officer go down to that house and say, you know what? The community's identified this as an issue. What's going on? How can we make sure that this doesn't happen? And these are consequences if it continues. I'm going to send this license plate out to every single detachment member in the surrounding detachments, and we're all going to be watching for it. And 0 breaks. Here's consequences if you continue. As well as, if it's a youth, I'm going to go talk to the owners of that vehicle. Okay? As police officers, we're looking at ways to not charge. Because I'm telling you, by charging and putting people in jail, we're just creating better criminals. We look at other options. If we can work with a group like this and reduce crime, it's fantastic. I could tell you in my community, my last community, I was a detachment commander in Creston, BC. By dealing with the habitual offender program and dealing with all the other social groups, agencies, and the community, we cut property crime 25% in 1 year. And that was because the community came forwards. When I was in Lutzoké, Northwest Territories, most violent community in the north. As a police officer, they only sent big guys. The 2 police officers I replaced had shipped their families out because they'd been threatened, and then they got shipped out because someone came and shot all the windows out at the detachment with a shotgun while they were inside. That's the community I went to and took my family to.
What did you do to get up there?
Okay? In 1 year, we canceled court. Why? Because I went to chief and council and I said, this is your community. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to help you. How would you like me to proceed? Because I can't do it. Look at what happened to the 2 previous police officers here. They left. I'm here to say, I'm here to help you, but I can't do it alone. Chief and council and the community stepped forwards. We created a youth justice league that dealt with adults and youth before that ever existed. And we got to the point where we canceled court. Our drug dealers, I caught a drug dealer, charged them 144 joints. The very next day, he's out, and he gets a 15-year-old kid to start selling drugs for him because he knows that I'm watching him. The parents of that 15-year-old come to me. I walk right down to chief and council. We say, this is what's going on in your community. How can we as a group deal with this? Chief and council said, any house that guy lives in, that drug dealer, will not got, because all the water and sewer are in tanks in the house. There's no plumbing. There's no pipes. Any house that individual lives in will not get water delivered or sewer picked up. That one action, he went to chief and council, said, this is against my human rights. You can't do this. They said, this is our community. We have a certain expectation if you're going to live here, that you're going to live in harmony with everybody else and not sell drugs to our kids and not get a 15-year-old kid to sell drugs for you. So this is going to continue as long as you stay. He's on the very next plane, goes to the newspaper in Yellowknife. They write up a big story about how his human rights were violated. And my phone did not stop ringing. How did you do that? Okay? They do that now all over the north. Because the community stood up and said, this is no longer acceptable in our community. They were vocal. They talked about it. They brought that up at community meetings. These are issues in our community. How do we address it? It has to be the front topic in every community meeting. If there's an issue with property crime, what are we doing as a community? Oh, we're going to ask the police to do it. Well, you know what? They can't fix it. You know who's doing that. And putting him in jail just shows them how to do it better next time. Start dealing with the outside causal factors. What are the support issues? And that's why the habitual offender management program works. That's why if a community steps forwards, it changes. Because you take ownership. And that's what we've lost. I remember growing up in small town Saskatchewan. I knew everybody. And if a kid was making issues, the parents, everybody was my parent. Like it wasn't, I just had to worry about mom and dad. It was everybody knew, well, I was tall, Bob. I was like 6 feet tall when I was 12, so But everybody knew me. So I couldn't get away with anything. Because if I did something wrong, my mom heard about it. I wasn't scared of my dad. I was scared of my mom. She was like 5'1", and I was petrified of her. But my mom heard about it. And we've lost that. And because we've thought, if you do something wrong, you go to jail. Well, no. If you do something wrong, the community looks at it. Why? Why are we doing this? And give them support so they change. And this is the start. Just by getting together, being the eyes and ears and the voice of your community. And that's I'm going to get off my soapbox now. But any other questions? Okay, I thank you. This is my personal email and phone number. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send it. If I don't know the answer, I will certainly try and get you the answer or get you the contact that can help you.